Falcon Eyes reached out to me a couple months ago asking me if I would review or at least just take a look at their Falcon Eyes F7 pocket light. Without any strings attached, I decided to go ahead and make a short video review on it, and they also didn't pay me anything extra for this particular review. But seeing as I did in fact receive it free, it will fog my perspective maybe a little bit, but I really do hope to be as objective as I possibly can, even though technically I really can't be because I received it for free. Anyways, in the box came the light, a metal articulating arm, a honeycomb grid, and the diffusion material. One note about the articulating arm is it's actually built surprisingly well. Usually the stock hinges or arms that come with like lights or monitors or that kind of thing are built really terribly, maybe out of plastic and then breaking, or the hinges just don't feel very good or stay where they need to be most of the time. But this ball bearing articulating arm was built very well and is built entirely out of metal and feels incredibly solid when you tighten everything down, so props to that. The grid and fusion are pretty self-explanatory, and I'll show you some examples of using the diffusion to light yourself at the end of the video. Before we get into the actual light features, the build quality on this thing is actually really solid. The metal enclosure feels pretty weighty in the hand without being too heavy, and on the side, the buttons are a little bit recessed into the body so that you don't accidentally bump it or move it. And while the buttons and dials are fairly clicky and the dials have a decent amount of resistance to them, I will say that electronically speaking, they're very sensitive, making it hard to make finer tuned adjustments on the light without a little practice. On the bottom, we have the normal 1/4-20 mount, like I mentioned before, for that little articulating arm to go onto. And on the top, it has something that I think every single camera, light, microphone, phone for that matter, should have, which is USB Type-C. What's really nice about having USB-C is that now I can charge my phone, my Deity D3 Pro microphone, and my Falcon Eyes light all with the same cord. It's kind of just a little convenience thing. I just like it so much more than micro USB. Moving on to the light itself, in my opinion, I really think for $150, the features that this light has and the quality that it is a pretty good value. With the internal 3000 milliamp hour battery, it keeps the light thin and sleek so you don't have any batteries sticking out the back, and has kept it running for me for a few hours off and on. I actually used this light during some wedding receptions, and it really worked like a champ for those few hours that we had it on and off, so no complaints there with the reliability of the battery or the reading on the battery itself. I haven't personally done any tests of the battery life, but from what I can tell, it seems to last as advertised. And one thing that I realized while making this review/overview was that the light is actually magnetic, so it seems like there are two strips of magnets in it, one at the top, one at the bottom, where you can attach it to most magnetic metal objects. So I actually just put it on my fridge and it worked there. Even for the weight of the light, the magnets seem to hold it very well. So in a pinch, it could be a helpful feature. So the thing that people typically like the most about lights like this are the fact that it's RGB. Now for me, RGB really isn't of much interest because I don't really do a lot of funky lights in the background or do any mood lighting in my videos. I typically just use either warm or cool lighting, and I try to keep it simple. Not saying I won't use RGB in the future, but for now, I just like to keep it to the basic warm and cold temperatures. And that brings me to the couple of reasons that I personally really like this light. The first is the fact that it has bicolor temperature adjustments, and the second is the color accuracy. The functionality of being able to move from 2500 Kelvin all the way to 9000 Kelvin has given me a lot of flexibility when it comes to shaping my light around warm or cooler environments. So far, I've enjoyed using this light as kind of like a warm background glow that I'll be using in some future videos, or as a daylight hair light that I set off and out of the scene that will light a little bit of my. Also, side note, the ability to lower the brightness to 1% on the Falcon Eyes F7 is a really awesome feature if you need just that tiny bit of an accent or a fill light. Lastly, the color accuracy is something that is very valuable to me. Being above 97 CRI helps the Falcon Eyes F7 render colors really accurately. So if you're at 5600 Kelvin and you have another light that's at 5600 Kelvin, the accuracy of both of the lights are going to match up really well. So one thing I'm curious about is if this light, either by itself or slightly modified, is good enough to light videos like this. I think you'll actually be pretty surprised at what it's capable of. Alrighty, for the first setup, we have the Falcon Eyes F7 pretty close, I would say at about 1.5 feet from me at a bit of an angle. and it really looks pretty harsh, but you could get away with it if you wanted to. The next thing we want to do is to add a little bit of diffusion to this light. That'll cast a bit of a softer glow on the face and would be much better for a key. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so that's the light in the same spot with the diffusion on it, nothing in front of it, just the diffusion, and this is how it looks. One thing you could also do to add to this setup would be to have the Falcon Eyes here, and then you could add something like this newer fill diffuser into your shot. It's fairly harsh light coming at you here, and then you get a decent amount of shadows on the other side of the face. And what you want to do with this is bring it in and fill in that side of the face a little bit. So you can see that bringing this in, it fills in some of the shadows, and then as you take it away, the shadows come back. So what you could do is set it off to the side, find a place for it, and that gives you a halfway decent fill coming in here that will give you a little bit better of a look. Now this last setup that I'm going to show you is what I would highly recommend you do, and it's a combination of both. We're going to take off the diffusion on the Falcon Eyes, and then we're going to put this in front of the Falcon Eyes light, and we're gonna blast the Falcon Eyes as bright as it can go and back it up a little bit so that the light covers most of the diffusion. Alrighty, now that's definitely more like it. The light looks significantly more soft on the face, and you can get away with this look for maybe an impromptu interview setup if you really don't have time to set up a big light. Alrighty, spoiler alert, I don't know if you've already guessed, this entire video of me talking was shot on the Falcon Eyes F7 light. I have it at 100% brightness, 5600 Kelvin with my diffusion material right here. I thought it was cool to at least light the entire video with the light that I'm talking about, so you can get an idea with just a $20 diffusion panel what results you can get. Anyways, I hope this was helpful in some way. If you want to check out the Falcon Eyes, there's a link in the description which is affiliated, so I'll get a small portion of the revenue at no extra cost to you. And thanks so much to Falcon Eyes for sending me the light. Anyways, we'll see you all next week.